Diary of a Man in Despair. Friedrich Reck. August 1943.
I found Kleeblatt, my doctor, grieving over the death by the guillotine of his stepson, who wrote the leaflets distributed by the shoals, and was beheaded with those two youthful martyrs. With great effort, he had managed to forestall the corpses being dismembered and put into bottles of Lysol in anatomy classes. But the ghosts of the dead have begun their work, and already the effects are felt in the systematic demoralization of the Nazi ruling structure. For weeks now, the lower echelons of hierarchy, district officials, township leaders, and bastions of the regime generally have been making gestures, meant to be noticed, of disillusionment with the Nazis. Their general demeanor is now supposed to convey disgust, so that everybody may know their dissatisfaction, their unhappiness about the present state of things. Now, in the post office, for instance, the clerk is liable to fling official notices contemptuously to one side, muttering that he has had enough of this swindle. The secret behind this transformation. All these gentlemen have in recent days received a letter from a certain revolutionary executive, informing them that they will be held responsible for their official actions, that previous denunciations and similar crimes have been duly recorded against them, and that the continuation of such activities will further worsen the consequences for them. By great good luck, I got hold of one of these missives.
We possess documentary evidence regarding your activities since 1933, and you will be held responsible for them following the collapse of Hitlerism. The Executive Committee hereby informs you that you will henceforth remain under the most intensive observation. If there should occur a single further instance of activity on behalf of the present regime, or if any additional reports are confirmed of harm done to political opponents, the sentence of death which has been pronounced against you for future execution will be extended to include your entire family. Execution will be by hanging on the day of overthrow of the regime.
It had its effect. These letters were in some incomprehensible way sent registered mail from widely separated places, so that those sent to Bavaria originated in Insterburg, while the letters mailed to East Prussia evidently came from Baden or Württemberg. In any case, the effect was salutary. The minor satraps have simply stopped functioning, school teachers are once again to be seen in church, the women's leader has quieted down, and the local, party bastion gets ill with unfailing punctuality when called upon to hold a meeting. I drove into Munich with the wife of a Trostberg doctor, who told me that in 1938, her husband, then head of the local medical organization, had stopped treating Jews, including accident cases. Now, the woman related, her husband had trouble with his nerves, complained constantly about the purposelessness of life and the unreality of the party pronouncements, and was even toying with ideas of suicide. And why? Because one of these mysterious executive committees had sentenced him to be removed from the medical rolls for inhumane conduct unbecoming to a physician, effective the day of the overthrow, when the sentence might be supplemented by further punishment. Incidentally, the couriers who carried these letters halfway across Germany risked their lives on every trip. The day before yesterday, W., who is the leader of this organization of students, artists, and intellectuals, came to my house, a man deeply embittered by the death of his soldier son, 63 years old, with the elasticity of one in his 30s, and a face so haggard it is the very picture of death. And so I have been enrolled in a phalanx whose members' lives are from now on balanced on a razor's edge. We talked through the whole of a midsummer night and well into the bright morning, about future propagandizing, about the English radio broadcasts, unfortunately so often misinformed about the trend of German public opinion, about points to be added to our program in future. Herewith, a small sampling. Immediate and definitive elimination of Berlin and Prussia as political centers of gravity. An organization to be launched at once, which will take over the task of cleansing the area of southern Germany immediately upon the overthrow of the Nazis. Immediate expulsion of all Prussians arrived here since 1920. Immediate destruction of all war industry established in Bavaria since 1933. Further, in order to ensure the emergence of a new Germany, immediate and complete expropriation of all heavy industry, immediate nationalization of factories, immediate indictment for high treason for all those who have joined in dividing the spoils of the Hitler regime, with the very first trials to be of the von Pappens, Meissners, Neuraths, Hindenburgs, Schroeders, and their like. Immediate indictment of all the generals responsible for the continuance of the war. Not a bad beginning, not entirely devoid of hyperbole, certainly, and yet not without its germs of ideas as to how to end the mistakes of the last 80 years. And are we bad Germans because we deliberate these things? This depends on which Germany you mean. If by Germany is meant that gigantic heresy of Bismarck's which is today in extremis, if it is forgotten that before that there existed a Reich which was the cradle and focus of the great ideas, and that this Reich lasted 1,000 years, while the newcomers from Potsdam lasted a few decades before they failed, dragging down with them into the dust all the cultural treasures, the irreplaceable artifacts, the very memory of that earlier 1,000 years, then we are bad Germans. No, we are pondering these things because the future cannot be jerry-built. If we again botch things as we did in 1919, our grandchildren will shed their blood in still another Prussian-sponsored slaughter. Paradoxical as it may sound, we will have won the war if we can release Germany from Prussian hegemony, lift off its mercantilist superstructure, and free it of the senseless over-industrialization possible only because the government subsidizes it. This is the only way we will ever remove the purposeless and, in the highest sense, unproductive human ballast we now must carry, even if the job of removal takes decades. And this is also the only way we will be sure that if we have not won, at least, IG Farben has lost the war.